for coming here today, and thanks for doing this documentary. Now, can you introduce yourself and your role in the band?
I'm Reverend B-Rye. I play guitar in For Hate You Hate.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about your band and its history?
Um, I started playing with For Hate You Hate. We actually formed probably just over a year ago. They were playing in a punk band called His Royal Highness before I joined. They were looking for a new guitar player for that band. And then when I got in, me and the singer Corey and the bass player Sandy, we had history in a death metal band, Porno, in the mid 90s. So we were big metalheads. So once I got in there, I started kind of pushing the punk of His Royal Highness more towards the metal side of things. So we changed the name and we've been going strong since.
So you were saying something about a punk band or a metal band back in the days. What are your experiences about the scene?
For the metal scene, people are going to say, "Oh, he's an old guy. This is why he's saying it." But the '90s metal scene in London, it was the shit. Like it hasn't been the same since. Unfortunately, because I mean, we get great bands that tour through here and come through here still, just like we did back in the day. It's just the venues aren't supporting it like they did back in the day. We had multiple venues that put on the shows, local and international bands and stuff. Now, like it's a choice between the Richmond or the 765 because even like rum runners and stuff like that, like you got to be a pretty established band to get your ass in there to get a gig.
I'm just going to side a bit. What about the WIC or the embassy? What was it like then?
Oh, the Embassy was mecca for metalheads. Nonstop metal shows. Local scene was based out of there like, in the mid '90s. There was a pretty big local death metal scene. You had like Porno, Summertime Daisies, Blood of Christ, Flesh Feast, and if you took any two of those bands and had them on the bill at any one of the gigs, like they did well. You're looking at 200 plus people coming out to the shows and stuff. And this was just for locals. This was without opening up for the bigger bands. And then the Embassy just started bringing like crazy international touring acts, like anything from Cannibal Corpse to Ronnie James Dio. Like Dio played in the Embassy. They had Dee Snider from Twisted Sister playing in the Embassy. Typo Negative played the Embassy. Fear Factory, System of a Down, like all these bands played the Embassy. And if you asked anybody from back then, the Embassy, usually the first reaction is, what a shithole, because it was a divey bar and the washrooms were disgusting and shit like that. But I got nothing but great memories of that place. I don't give a shit what it was like inside. It was the bands that were inside that mattered, not the actual decor or lack of decor of the venue itself.
And just for some people that don't know or know, if you do, what happened to the WIC and the embassy?
Embassy, they sold it, and it was supposed to be high-rise condos way back, and the deal was that the developer that it was sold to was going to put a venue on the main floor of the high-rise condo, and he was going to let the embassy owners run the venue and keep bringing the shows like they bring. And that deal fell sour, didn't go through. And the WIC, from what I heard, he just didn't want to do it anymore. He just kind of let it go out of business on its own. He just didn't take care of the bar, because I'm pretty sure it's the same owner of the Richmond. Like he didn't put the work into the WIC anymore, because bands just kind of started dropping off once we got into the early 2000s and stuff. We just didn't have like in 1998, the local metal scene here was like really dried up for a few years. There was only like two death metal bands in the whole city in 1998, when in the early to mid 90s we had a bunch in town, and then all these ones from outside of town coming through all the time, and then it just like dropped off. And I think it was the popularity of Korn and that kind of music really had a lot to do with it. Everybody kind of, before there was Korn and all that, those kids were listening to Cannibal Corpse. But then all of a sudden Korn came along, and now, those are two different genres as far as I'm concerned. They're both metal, but they're stylistically at opposite ends of the spectrum of the type of metal that they're playing, But I totally fault new metal, or what they call it with, London especially, because that's what we started to see here. All the bands were coming out now were like POM and I forget the other two on a crack core. They were all like the new metal style, like the Korn style of music. So now all these guys that were 2 years before rock and death metal records and shit, whether they were in a band or not, now they're playing that style of music, and it did do well. I'm not going to knock it. It did well, but I mean that didn't do well for any other styles of metal. That was pretty much the only style of metal that did well here for a bunch of years.
Yeah, it's good to get the history of London metal for sure. Now, do you play in any other bands before?
Yeah, before for Hate You Hate, last band I was in was Bastardized. That was me on guitar, my brother on vocals, and my kid playing drums. And my kid just kind of got bored with the metal. He's getting too good at drums, so now he's playing Rush and shit. So that's why that kind of dissolved. Before that, I was in a band called Beards of Prey, and that was more like the only one that wasn't metal. It was more like a hard rock kind of thing that we were doing, and love being in that band. It's just the guitar player that writes all the music and did the recordings and stuff. He's very committed to his job. He's a partner at a studio, so he didn't really have the time. Like, this was just kind of something to do for fun for him instead of like be serious. Before that, I played in a thrash band based out of London, but they're all from like Port Elgin area, Southampton, called Mutual Execution. Before that, I played in it was probably the longest I played in a band was 8 years in a band called Escatus. That was like a death metal band, and we started in '98 when there was like no death metal band. So he decided, oh yeah, let's put a death metal band together, and there's like nobody to play with, and nobody wants to come see death metal anymore. And then it was Porno before that. That was the first band when I got to London in '94. I met them in '96 and joined them.
Now, if not playing in a band, is there anything you could see yourself doing?
Well, I taught guitar and drums for a while, and I never had seen myself doing that previously before I did do it. I had a great time doing it, but I give a shit too much. So it becomes a whole lot of work outside of the lessons. Because if I got kids coming in, they want to learn like these really hard songs, then I got to spend 15 to 20 hours that week to learn that really hard song to come in and play it as well as the CD. Because if I can't, why would a kid want to learn a song from me that I can't play that way? So I did want to do that, but now that I've done it for 10 years and seen all the hours I had to put in that, you're not getting paid for. It's great that I get to learn all these other songs and shit like that, but if I got 6 hours free in a day, I'd rather take my puppy out and have a good time with her than be just stuck playing music. I've been doing music for 30 years now, so now it's like I'm approaching it kind of like a senior citizen. Like, yeah, we'll jam once a week, and I'll write a song a month maybe. It's no more of that. Oh, we got to have 50 million songs so we can get signed. But aside from that, no. I like it when I can't play guitar anymore. Like I don't want to see what happens then. Like I don't trust what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna end up burning down the neighborhood or something, because it is what has been like my confidant for like over 30 years. And no matter how shitty whatever's going, I can pick up that guitar and write something. So I create something from nothing all on my own. It just makes whatever shit got me angry to begin with is gone, because it's usually channeled into the riff I just wrote. So then the riff comes out angrier and stuff like that. So I hope that I don't ever get too calm, like of a senior citizen mentality. I like that I still rage, because it comes out in the riffs and the guitar playing.
What do you feel when you're playing on stage?
That varies, because some nights we for Hey You Wait is probably my favorite live band I've played with over the years, just because we've been in bands for 30 years. We understand 30 years of being in bands, going to all the shows and everything. We completely understand what you have to give the audience, what the audience needs, and the audience. It can't just be about the music. Like, the music's a big part of it. You got to have the songs. If they don't dig the songs, then they're not digging you. But then you also have to have like the stage presence and the live show to go with that. Because if you're up there having a blast, they're going to have 10 times the blast that you're having. But if you're just up there standing and staring at your guitar neck and stuff, like, a lot of bands are guilty of, right? And I get it, they're younger, so they're not comfortable enough to jump around yet and stuff like that. But you can see immediately the audience is just kind of standing there watching them, like even if the guitar work is impressive or the singer has a good range, if there's no presence, it almost destroys that band on that stage, because I've seen so many bands over the years that just, as a musician, just fucking floored me, blew me away. Every guy, the vocalist, the guitarist, the bass, every guy on the instrument is like fucking teacher grade quality, but they just fucking stand there and the audience is reacting that same way. Like how's the audience expected to get into it when you're not getting into it yet? Like, we're not all Slayer, right? Like Slayer, all they got to do is show up on stage and people start beating the shit out of each other, right? They don't even have to play a note, but that's because they have that history, that Slayer. So because of that, they get away with it. But when nobody knows who you are, you're in a bar and people are seeing you for the first time, you really got to play like you are Slayer. You got to play like you're on that stage and you're playing in front of 10,000. And I really love that. And for Hate You Wait, we do give that show. But when we're doing that, it's like a really small audience, because we'll do that. We've done it for 5 people. We've had 5 people watching us in Brantford, and we were jumping all over the stage. The vocalists went down there, started a mosh pit with the 5 people. Like we get into it. So they loved it. They got into it and everything. Those 5 people had the best time, and they were 3 of them were from one band and 2 were from another band. They weren't even people that came in off the street. They were bands we played with that night. And when we got done that one, like the energy exchange for 5 people, because these 5 kids were digging it, so like slamming into each other, digging it. So it was only 5 people though. So if I was standing out in the audience and looking at that, I'd almost snicker. Like it looks kind of funny. Just 5 dudes hitting each other. But when you're up on stage, that fucking what's making them do that comes to you, that hits you on the stage, and it's the same way. It goes both ways. It reciprocates. So the crazier they get, the crazier you get. You put it back to them. And then we saw it at a gig probably like a month ago now in Waterloo. So maybe like 15, 20 people in the front, but we had all 15 of them slamming into each other like they owed each other money, and it was just like every other band that was on the bill that night. They got people standing and watching and clapping and cheering when they were done and stuff, but it was the lack of presence, So the audience reaction to me, like, it's always good, but it's those special ones when you get like those 2 shows I just described. Like it's like a drug. It's literally like you get off that stage, and I mean, like at the one gig, the 5 people gig, I was hammered. We didn't play till 1 a.m. So I was hammered. So normally when I'm shift facing, we're on the way home. You're fucking in the van. You're out. We were up till 5:30. All of us up, just like, because we were like on this fucking high that these 5 people gave us. We played for 5 people, and not one person in that vehicle. It was such a pleasure to be in a band. Not one complaint in that vehicle on the ride home. Not nobody going, oh fuck, we drove all the way to Brantford for 5 fucking. No, we were in that thing like, did you see the way they were digging there? Like, it was good. We felt their energy, they felt our energy, and it was just like, that was the gig that we knew we had something.
How do you prep before a show?
Me personally, that's why I'm Reverend B-Rye. I drink whiskey. That's what I do. I don't even play guitar the day of the show, just because I want to go in fresh. I don't want to go in and, because when I play, I do 2 hours of exercises every day for my guitar and stuff like that. So when I do those, like, sometimes my forearm gets sore or whatever, because they're tough. It's tough stuff that I'm doing. So on the day of a show, don't play at all. I drink whiskey. The other guys, we all smoke weed, so we all smoke a lot of weed leading up to going on. And the singer, he always takes it easy, like before gigs. Like usually if we have a jam before a gig, he won't even come to the jam, because he just, he wants to let that animal loose when he gets there, because it's all going to be dependent on like size of audience, how he's feeling, the venue. Because I've seen him just go do a killer job because he loved the venue. He wasn't even really paying attention to what was going on out front. He was just like, it was a great stage, great sound, and he was just jumping all over the place everywhere. So it's like I said, it's probably my favorite live band I've been in over all the years, because 0 complaints, 0 fucking bitching. Like everybody's just happy to do what we do.
What do you do when you aren't doing a show? How do you relax?
That's all about the doggy. I got a bull terrier pup, and I take her out like anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day over two different times that I leave the house and stuff. So I'm spending half my waking moments outside with a dog because she just makes me laugh so much. The other thing is the practice. I still do like to play guitar just for fun. Like besides the exercise and stuff, I like to just pick up the guitar sometimes when I'm feeling it. If I see a video on Facebook of a band or something, or hear a new track from a band and it inspires me, that's probably my favorite thing to do. Where I'm not planning on picking up the guitar, and it's just like I run to the guitar. So it happened to me 4 days ago, and I ended up now it's going to be a new song in the band because 4 days ago I got inspired, and next thing I know I had like these three riffs, and I brought them to the jam room on Thursday, and drummer and bass player were just loving it. So it's like, yeah, that's the new song. So that's pretty much it. Playing guitar and playing with the doggy.
Would you say that is the same as your hobbies?
Yeah, like my hobby only has ever been music. I got into computer stuff for a little while years ago and shit, but the amount of hours you spend, like when you're a computer freak and you're in front of a monitor all the time and stuff, like the headaches and tension around the neck I would get, it just turned me off. Like now, I use the computer to watch Netflix and shit like that. Like it's not even, and Facebook, obviously, I go on there because that's how I find out about local shows and stuff here in London, and the local bands plus other bands that I like. They post stuff all the time, so it's always about music. Like and my whole hobbies is like music, music, music. It's like why my son is such a good musician for how little time he put in. Like he upsets me because I've watched kids that spent double 10 years to do where he's at, and he's only been doing it for about 4.5. So it's because growing up he just always music all the time. Like my ex-wife would go nuts because she hated metal, but it's like no, I'm you
How
can
can
play
you?
you
How
can
can
play
you
your pop.
hate metal?
Oh, she hated. Hey, she hated. Like, it's not fun. Like I don't even know why we got married. Like that's what. Like we smoked a lot of weed back then when we ended up getting married. So I blame that we were smoking way too much weed because like I said, she hated it, like loathed it, despised it. So I went from listening to metal all the time, and then when we got married and got a house together, can't play metal anymore. Can't play metal in the car. So the only time I could listen to metal is like on my Discman with my headphones when I'm walking our dogs. So I would go for like that's what started me on these 3-4 hour walks, right? So I could listen to music because it wasn't being allowed in the house because she couldn't stand it. Yeah.
Wow. I know you already touched on the scene. I'm just going to ask this again, just in case you wanted to add a little bit more on this. But what are your opinions on the scene now compared to back in the days?
Uh, well, like I said earlier, the scene was a stronger scene back in the day. But like I said, a good reason for that was like the embassy, called the office, the Wick, like all the venues putting shows on. Even the Vic was still open then with the Bucket of Blood, and they did metal shows and stuff. Like uh, there was like every weekend there was always like a metal show on Friday and Saturday, like every weekend, and people went. Like we did have like I forgot about the Electric Banana. That one had like crazy shows go on, and they're a little tiny hole in the wall, and it was all
Was there
usually
APK too?
yeah. Like it was all these metal shows that they'd put on there, and then like I said, now you go now, and luckily we got a couple venues that are doing it. But I mean, when's the last metal show you've seen that called the Office? Right? Like they're very rare, few and far. But in the '90s, they had metal. They had to grab them because if they didn't, the embassy would take everybody. So in order to get a piece of that pie, but now that that pie isn't there, so to speak, right? And I'm not faulting the bands in the scene or anything like that, because I think the bands in the scene, like today, from what I've seen and been to the shows and stuff, like they have that same kind of camaraderie going like we had back in the '90s and shit, and we helped each other out, and we did shows with each other. Like we were doing what we could to get the shows on. But like I said, when you have an embassy, a venue like the embassy backlining your band, just throwing fucking shows at you, right? Like we didn't even have to work for it. They would just call us up and you want to play with Testament? You're the only other band on the bill. Like who's going to say no to that? Like. And that was probably my fourth show with that band. Like I just joined, and it's just like holy fuck. Like I thought, maybe we'll play the Wick or something. Like I had no idea the scene was like that till I got into Porno, that band. And once being in the band, I started to see that even the locals brought it in, And nowadays, like when I see just the locals, it's still hard. Like you got to put everything right. It's got to be like fucking check day. You got to make sure the show's on check day, so swelly checks are out. So you got extra audience that might participate in the show. You got to make sure it's the Friday or the Saturday. Fucking, you got to make sure it's like a decent venue. Nobody, like the Richmond, their metal shows are always hit or miss. Some do well, some don't, and it's because some people don't want to go to the Richmond because some of the stories they hear coming out of that place, right? Like there's last fall I heard of a guy outside of the bar though, but he was in the bar earlier with a machete and hit somebody with it, So when a story like that gets around, it even hurts the attendance even more so. So I think today it's like the bands really can't do nothing any more than they're doing. They're already doing everything they can do because, like I said, I see them, helping each other out, putting each other on each other's shows. I see members of certain bands starting their own promotions company, and then they can do shows for fucking everybody. Well, that's exactly what was done in the 90s. That was being done by the bands too. Well, like I said, what we had over what they have today is basically the Embassy. Like, it's sad to say, but it really is that. All those metal shows, those great metal shows, they went to that one fucking place, and they always, the Embassy's policy was always one local opener. Didn't matter who the fuck it was that was coming through. Didn't matter how many bands they had on the package. Embassy puts one local opener, and that was their way of like helping us out, in the scene. Like, hey, maybe they'll like you and bring you on tour or something like that, right? So that's pretty much the missing ingredient for today's metal scene. I know, Jimmy does good over at 765 and puts on the metal shows as best as he can. But like I said, they're mostly, for the most part, like locals. And then like, the only step bigger they'll go than locals like Cryptopsy or Beyond Creation. You're getting like a Montreal band. They're not getting Testament or fucking Cannibal Corpse like the Embassy did, right? So that is why the Embassy, I think, had such a healthy scene. It was 50% the venue itself. It was what they were doing in there. Everybody knew what they were doing in there, so everybody went. Like it was like, fuck. Well, if they have Cannibal Corpse, then these locals are going to be good, because that's what you would think back then, right? Like what bar would put it? Like, I just saw Testament in this bar. So then the next week when there's a bunch of locals playing, your logical thought process is like, well, they got to be halfway decent. A bar that plays Testament isn't going to put some fucking shit. Whereas I'll say that for the bars. They are not, like, the bars are just letting the bands set up the bill without knowing who's coming into their bar. And sometimes that works against the show, right? Like back in the day, Embassy days and stuff like that. Like the show we're going to do in Simcoe, we got like 4 really strong bands, right? So that's all we wanted. We didn't give a shit, what style, if they're close to us in this style or whatever. We just know that we've seen these bands live. They've got presence. They've got really good songs. That's what we want to give Simcoe. Give them the fucking show. And I know that every gig that goes on here, that's what these bands are trying to do. But some of these bills, I'm not saying like all the bands, but you're always going to get, like they say, there's always one in the bunch. You're always going to get that band that's like, what are they doing on this show, right? Like, everybody's thought themselves that way. And back in the day, that never happened. Like back in the day, every show, whether it was locals only or Testament or Cannibal Corpse, the lineup was stacked. So you're being entertained right from the get-go, right from first band all the way to the last band. And that's the only tweaking, and that Adam McGoffin Productions, his kind of, he's putting, like, that's, you know what I mean? There's a guy doing it the right way. He's putting in strong lineups. He's getting like good bands that play with it. That's where it's going to have to start. Like the audience isn't going to be there right away. Everybody's not going to just come out of the woodwork for it, but keep doing that, and word spreads, people will keep coming out. So I still got hope, because I was hopeless there for a while. Like, it was just like, when I was playing in metal bands, that's why when they offered me to come play in a hardcore band, I was jumping at it. I was like, all right, let's, because I've been doing metal all this time. And the most popular I ever was, or the biggest height I ever reached of success was Porno. 25 was the first band. All the bands since then, they've had varying degrees of success. I played some big gigs. In Mutual Execution, I got to play on the original El Macombo stage in the same spot Stevie Ray Vaughan played. That's where I was playing my guitar for my set that day. So that ranks to me probably just as high as opening for Testament as a milestone in my career as playing guitar in bands and stuff. But the whole reason I wanted to switch out of metal was like, the metal scene, it's tough. It is so hit and miss, and so much more on the miss side than hit side. Like we only ever really get the guaranteed hits when we bring, Cryptopsy or Beyond Creation. We got to bring somebody from outside of town to make our gig do better. And it's like, that's always been the way, but with the new production companies that are coming out now, like I said, Adam McGoffin, he's putting those packages together. So nobody's, big. These are all like local to Southwestern Ontario, but they're all top shelf bands like that. You put shows like that, then like I said, people will talk. The word will spread, and people will be like, okay, $10, I'll do that, because everybody's $10 now. We all know nobody wants to pay $10. Like any show we're going to do, we're going to still charge $5. We don't want to do $10 because we know that does turn a lot of people off, the whole $10 thing, because they don't know what they're getting when they walk in. So you pay $10 and you go in and nobody interested you at all that night, and you ended up just drinking beer in that bar. You feel ripped off at your $10 at the end of the night, So, like I said, it's got hope. Like I'm liking what I'm seeing now now we got promotion company back again in London, because we've always had them. We had Black Element a few years ago, and I think they still exist to some degree, but they don't do shows and stuff anymore. But back when they came out, they were packing the Richmond, like the Richmond, packing it and charging $5 at the door at the Richmond and packing the place, with the shows they were putting on. And it was a 2-day metal fest, and it was just Southwestern Ontario bands. We didn't have we had one Quebec band, but it was Insurrection, so they're much more known now. But back then, this is going back 5 years probably now, they weren't very known at all outside of where they're from in Montreal. So when they disappeared, it was just like, holy fuck, like they were the same thing, only put together a quality show, so they were a great thing for the scene. So it's good to see Adams out there doing the same thing that, you should be doing, especially in metal. You got to give people value for that $10.
Exactly. Can you tell us what to expect in the future? I think you said something about Sarnia.
Well, for us, we got 3 gigs in April, and the third gig is first one we're going to set up. The bar doesn't usually set up the shows; they do outside promoters. So our bass player was talking to the bar owner, gave us the night. So April 28th, we're playing in Simcoe. It's our gig. And we asked along Specs here from London, because we've seen them a couple times, and they never fail to disappoint. The live show is fantastic with those guys. The demo's great. Like, we were listening to it just the other day again, like getting stoked for the show, because it's quality music. We brought out Scream Bloody Murder. They're from Guelph, and they're kind of in the vein of what we do. So that's why we like them, because they kind of do same thing we do, that kind of like hardcore meets metal kind of thing, straddle the line, So we're big fans of them. So we asked them. And then last band we got was a band out of Niagara Falls, Stand Against Fear. Played with them a couple, 3 months ago. Great guys. Again, they give the show, like that's all we're worried about. They're probably the mellowest of the bands. They're more of a traditional kind of like metal style, and like a Anvil, kind of like like that kind of style of metal meets hardcore. So they kind of have that classic metal sound with the hardcore. So they don't do quite as fast as the other three. But like the other 3 bands, we like to play fast. Like that's all 3 of us. That's kind of our thing. Whereas we wanted to have one band where it was like, okay, like we can't just put everybody just, super fast. So like, who can we get that's, like gears it down a little bit, but they're still heavy and they still give the show and stuff. So like I said, because of our experiences playing with them and that, they were easy choice. So we got them on the bill for the final band. And I think we were only going to charge $6 like for the gig, because again, like I said, people don't really want to pay 10. This is out in Simcoe. They're not known to have a whole lot of shows. So we're hoping that it's going to be like one of those scenarios where, it's a little town, and when the show comes, everybody goes to the show. Like you get these little towns where that happens. In Porno, like 25 years ago, we played this town, New Liskeard. It's like in the border of Quebec. It's like back then the population was like 470 or something ridiculous like that. The place was packed. Like every kid in town when we played the gig, we had a gig. We went down that day because the town is small. We put the promos up all day. Everybody's, oh, there's a gig tonight, because it wasn't even in a bar. It was at a pool hall. So like they had to move pool tables out of the way so we could play on the floor. But the gig ended up packing because the last time these guys saw bands rolling through, and the best part was when we were out in the town during the day putting the promos up and shit. Kids were coming up to us like we were like fucking Motley Crue or something. Like, oh, you're playing tonight? Oh my god! Because we're the band. We got these big professional looking promos done up and all that. Like they think we're like this fucking, and we're just like some band from London that lucked out and got a gig in New Liskeard and decided to make the 10-hour fucking drive. Like we didn't care what we were getting paid, and I think that's why I really love being in For Hate You Hate with these same guys now. Like it's come full circle. 25 years later, I'm riding in the truck with the same fucking two other guys that I did 25 years ago, and we had that same mentality back then. Like it wasn't about when you go on and fucking what time your set is, and we just see so much of that shit, and it's like if the bands are good and you do the set list accordingly, start the show late enough. Don't start no fucking show at 8 o'clock. Nobody's going to be in your bar at 8 o'clock. The bands are only showing up at 8 o'clock with the gear,
Mm-hmm.
So if you started it closer to 10 or later, and you put 4 good bands on that for I can't see how the show isn't going to do well. I can't see anybody complaining about their set time, but you get it all the time. Like, everybody wants to be that coveted 11:30 spot. Everybody wants that because I'm not going to lie, we all know, because the bar's swelling and everybody wants to play in front of that huge audience. But if the band is good after, or the band is good that they're watching right there, if the bands are good, people stick around. That's just a golden rule I've seen in 30 years of playing music. If a band is really good, nobody is going to fucking go anywhere. So the scene in London for the future, like I said, I've got hope now. We got promotion. You got Adam out there running his productions company to make sure the shows are putting together fucking stellar bands that everybody's going to be entertained for their $10 or $6 or fucking $12, whatever it is. The bottom line is people are coming out, they want to be entertained, and if the shows aren't being set that way, and I think that's probably been the biggest detriment to the London metal scene in the last 10 years. It's just bands are putting it together without any thought. Oh, I'll just get this guy's band to play because I know this guy, and I'll just get this. And then you get these odd lineups that, like I said, you're left scratching your head like, why the fuck is this band even playing here? And that's not to say you can't cross genres. You can. Like metal has all kinds of, there's hardcore with the metal edge, like what I do in the band I'm in now. You've got the traditional metal styles. You got thrash metal style, death metal style. You got these symphonic metal bands. Like it's everywhere. You could put a lineup of 4 really good bands. That's the other thing I'd like to see for the future. 4 or less bands, because if it's 8 and 9 fucking bands, it better be like Cannibal Corpse and Testament and DRI. That's the 8-9 bands, and Voivod. That's who should be playing for 8-9, because that's what people will put up with that shit for. I went to Heavy TO when Slayer was there and all that, and I would never go do that again because it was just a shit show. Like 20 fucking bands, and I'm waiting all day / half the night just to see my favorite band and stuff like that, and I could give a shit about 80% of the other bands that they had playing there. Like that was just, to me, was just a clusterfuck, and explains why they never had another one. Because the lineup for Heavy TO was just that shit. It wasn't consistent enough across what they were doing. They were just grabbing, like, Billy Talent at Heavy TO was the headliner after Slayer. Like, who the fuck thinks that shit up? That never happens. That's why I think they never had a Heavy TO again, right? That was the last time they had it, and I think it was because of that failed experiment. Me being there on the Sunday, the last day, it was half empty. Like the place wasn't even packed. And I heard later on that they never sold out. It never even sold out to begin with. Whereas Heavy Montreal, how many years are they going now with Heavy Montreal? They do it every fucking year, and it gets bigger and stronger each year. Again, the lineup. Like at the end of the day, I think that's what'll save London metal is these bands in town that are really good. And they got their shit together. They got to just start playing together exclusively and stop, taking shows that, might take away from them. Because what happens if, one of these good bands, like fucking my buddy Sammy plays in a band, Matter in the Meeting. I haven't seen them play in a while. They're just a phenomenal band to watch. Like, what happens if Matter goes out and, they get the 11:30, they get the gem spot, but at fucking 10 o'clock and or at 9:30 and 10:30, they put on two shit garbage bands that just send everybody running for the door. Because I've seen it happen. I've seen the Richmond get cleared out from a band playing. Like a band will come up and play the stage, and everybody fucking leaves because they're not having a good time. So at the end of the day, from what I've seen from London bands, the ones that are operating now and doing their thing now, they're all obviously getting better at what they do. Their presence is getting much better at the same time. So like I said, now you have these bands that are able, they have the power to give you the show. So now it's up to either the bands or the promoters or both to start putting those shows on.
You were talking about the fans when you showed up at that place that was packed. How much does fans mean to you?
The fans are probably the most important thing, besides the music being the therapeutic value I get from music. Because music to me is therapy. Playing in a band, that's the best way I can get my demons out, so to speak. The fans come right behind that, because without them, like, I've got no reason to be playing in front of anybody, and I just wish I was a little more social with the fans and stuff. I get like right into like a turtle mode when we get done. Like, we finish a set, and I just kind of like hide. We go smoke weed and we hang out by the truck, and like, and I think like we're doing it because like we're all old. We're all pushing 50. All the guy, and the one dude is 50. In our band, right? So like we're like grandpas. Like we show up. It's hilarious, and we show up to these gigs sometimes, and these younger bands, like, we're literally old enough to almost be their grandpas. And they're like looking at us like, oh, what are these fucking, are they the plumbers union coming in here? Like, who the fuck are these guys? And then like we've yet to have them, just have that same attitude. Once we play and they see us go, then they come, oh fuck, you guys are awesome, like because we gave them the show, we entertain the audience like we're there to do. So like without the audience, yeah, it would just be kind of pointless. Like, I would do music still without being in a band, because there's been years where I wasn't playing music, a few stretches over the years, and I still played guitar every day and stuff like that, because it was, again, like kind of like therapeutic, but nothing like getting on that stage. And like I said earlier, even when 5 people are digging the shit out of it, that adrenaline rush and shit that it gives you as a human being, like it's been scientifically proven. We're getting big fucking doses of dopamine when that shit's going on the stage. That's why when we get off the stage, we're fucking chatterboxing all, like we've been doing rails all night till 5 in the morning. It's the fucking, we're ODing on dopamine. The better the response, or better the show, the bigger the fucking dose that you get. So, oh yeah, it's definitely, it'd be like totally not even worth it without people to be there and enjoy what the hell we're doing.
And how do you promote your shows?
For now, we've been basically like everybody else, just doing the event things on Facebook, in person too. Like, we do the word of mouth thing, when we're out at a show and tell people that we're playing gigs and stuff like that. We have been discussing, because back in the day with Porno, we were the promo kings of London. Like, when we played with Testament, their road manager actually asked us what company we had promo the gig, because we literally put up 15,000 flyers for this gig, and we did it like 9,000 a week and a half before the show, and then 6,000 like 3 days before the show. And we didn't hit everywhere. We hit every high school and the colleges, and we plastered them. That's why there's 15,000. Like, we didn't just put one up. We put like 10 up. And the gig ended up being sold out in advance, like days in advance, right? Because every metalhead, and if metalheads are the common age is 15 to 25, so we got high school and college, every metalhead in town knew that gig was coming. And to have their road manager, who also road manages for Slayer, he does the 2 bands, come up to us and be like, what company do you use? Like, we were pretty high on the hog with that, like, holy fuck, yeah, we do put up a lot of promos, so we've been discussing that once we set up, because like I said, Simcoe's the first gig that we're doing. And I won't rule this out. We've already discussed going to Simcoe like a week before the gig and putting up physical flyers all over Simcoe and just plaster the town like we used to do in Porno like fucking 25 years ago, because we never saw the one commonality in Porno in the 2 years I was there anyway. Fucking, I never saw an empty house. It was always 2, 3, 400 fucking people that we're playing in front of. Like I never knew what an empty house was until after I left the band and started going my way and started my own band. That was a Scatus. That was like a band that I started with my brother and drummer from the band Apocalypse. That was an old London metal band. And once we started that band, like we thought, oh, like these tunes are so good, they'll just be lining up. And we got a rude awakening, like Embassy was still around. So we got a couple of cool gigs because Embassy remembered me from being in Porno. So, I had a new band. I always got along well with Helen and her son Tyson. So once I had the new band up and running, we were the only death metal band in town at the time. So he was giving us gigs, so they were ridiculous. Like at our first gig with him, Blink 182 was huge. Pop punk was huge. So London had 1 million pop punk bands back then that just sprung up out of nowhere when Blink 182 hit, and they'd be 7, 8 band bills every weekend at the Embassy. So Tyson, we're a death metal band. He puts us on one of these pop punk band bills, right? Gives us the primo slot because again he remembered me from Porno. We always hit it off really well. Gives us the primo spot, the 11:15 to midnight spot. Gives us 45 minutes. All the other bands only get 25 minutes. And we were only added the night before because a band backed out. So none of these other bands knew. We come walking in, it's all these little punk rocker kids and shit. See these big fucking long-haired dudes fucking coming in, loading gear. Who the fuck are you, Oh, we're playing. Oh, really? When? First? No, we play 11:15. So immediately, 2 of the bands heard we were playing 11:15. They thought they were getting that spot. They run to Tyson and start chirping Tyson about, oh, fucking who are these guys, blah, blah, blah. Tyson's like, my bar, get out of my fucking face. So we still got the primo spot. We had them fucking bad-mouthing us all night. All night we had all these bands, seven punk bands. Every time they're walking by us, any of them just glaring and fucking giving us the stink eye and shit like that. And we're laughing. They're young kids, We were all like pushing 30, so it's like fuck whatever. And it gets time to go up and play. We get up on the stage and play, and these fucking kids, they loaded it up. All bands, there's 7 bands. There's like 35, 40 fucking kids. They line up the front of the stage and they just start spitting and throwing their fucking beer cups. Like anybody who knows my drummer from back in the day, he's not one to be trifled with. He's a big fucking dude, and when his fuse goes, look the fuck out, And we're like halfway through the song, we're covered in spit and fucking beer and shit. They're yelling and screaming, and me and my brother's the other guitar player. We're laughing. We're having the best time. The more they're spitting at me, I'm fucking windmilling at them like, fuck you. Go ahead. What do you think? Fucking, we're going to play all 45 minutes. You think it's going to stop? It's like, it got us, like fucking fuck them, right? Like, we'll go. And we even got like a blast of fucking dopamine from like me and my brother anyway, because we were just like fine with it, fucking, we'll keep playing. It was the drummer. We finished the first song. He yells at me. I turn around. I'm not fucking playing anymore. He wanted to leave. He's like, fuck, he said, one more fucking beer cup hits me, I'm fucking getting out from behind the kid. I'm going to find who did it, So I was like, Fred, come on. If we do this, they're going to laugh. They're going to love it. They're going to all fucking go hug each other in the bathroom because this is what they want. They don't want us to play. We took their spot. We weren't on the bill till today, Like, who the fuck? And we don't even play their style of music. They want us to leave. So I was like, it's up to you. You want to do it? Let's do it. And once I put it to him like that, he's like, yeah, you're right. Fuck him, right? And we played the full 45-minute set. So, like I said, it was a fucking pretty surreal experience. It's probably one of my favorite gigs ever because playing in front of people that hate you is probably even a little bit like more of a dopamine rush than the people that like you. I think the dopamine had that little bit of extra spice because these people had such a hard on for hating us out front. It made that hate that much spicier. So
spicy hate.
Oh yeah, like I said, it was probably one of my favorites. So playing the gigs around then, it was pretty tough. Like like I said, I went from Porno playing like packed houses all the time, and then now it's just everybody's pop punk, and then it went straight from pop punk pop punk to like the Korn style and stuff like that. And death metal kind of never really made the comeback till like now. Like nowadays we have death metal bands again in London, you know. And I was just like, as I saw them start to come back, because the band I did with my son, we would do death metal. The original stuff was death metal style. So when I saw that happening, you know, and with my kid, we played with the Beyond Creation at 765 a few years back. The first time they ever came to London, it was just like stack lineup. You had a taxi, you had all these great bands, and the show did well. Like every band from front to back, and like we had to go on at 8 or 8:30 at night, and you know my kid was all like kind of bummed, you know, because like 8 o'clock at night, it's only the bands that are there, right? And then I'm like, yeah, but think all these drummers that are coming out, like they're gonna come out watch you. You watch, and like sure as shit, you know, we got out there playing. Everybody's out there, and he got kudos from drummers all night long because he was 14 at the time when he was playing this gig, and he's playing death metal at 14 years old, you know. So he had a blast, but like I said, shows like that are, you know, we had to have Beyond Creation in order for, you know, we stacked the lineup with like a taxi all the way down because the taxi was right before him, but Beyond Creation is what put it over the top so that you could have like a full house in the 765 where it was like, you know, shoulder to shoulder with people. And it's sadly, like I said, you haven't seen that in London unless it's a big band. Like you got to go see Exodus or Anthrax at the music hall and shit like that to see that. And you know, like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, local bands were doing that. And I see in Kitchener, it's still that way. Like in Kitchener, it's like they're in a time machine or something over there because it has never stopped. Like my band now, we're trying desperately to go play Kitchener because every video footage I've seen from my buddies that play in bands out there, it's insane how many people are at these gigs and the giant mosh pits. And the one band my buddy Reef plays in Invicta, like they had the crowd do a wall of death. They're like a local band, and I saw a video where the crowd from like, and the Boathouse is a pretty big venue in Kitchener, from the front of the stage to the back of the room, separated, and wall of death. And this is like a local band at the time that I think all they had was like a 5-song EP that you could get and shit like that. And it's like I'm looking at this. This was like last year. Like why can't London have this? But then you go look at Kitchener, right? Like I look at the shows through Facebook and shit like that, and you see the lineups they're putting together. They're keeping it to 4 bands or less, like the shows and stuff like that. And it's the quality of bands that they're putting together. They're making sure that they're putting together a lineup, like I said, that now is finally starting to happen in London. That we got, you know, Adam out with his promotions company out now. He's obviously a student of that school. You got to, you know, put a fucking strong lineup together if you expect anybody to come out and pay any kind of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, see this question here. Where was the first show you played at as a band, like your first show, your very first
show as a band was with the band Porno, so it would have been Embassy. It was 1996. It's got to be September, I think, when I joined, and I wasn't even asked to join the band at the time. Blood of Christ had parted ways with their original vocalist Jay DeVille, so they had gotten Conan for the full length for Blood of Christ. So Jay DeVille wasn't singing for anybody, and Porno, the drummer, was singing, and he kind of wanted to focus more on drumming and stop singing while he's drumming, because to drum death metal and sing at the same time, it's tricky, you know. And so they were looking for a singer, so they got a hold of DeVille, and at the time, Jay DeVille was staying with an uncle of his right around the corner from where I lived, and I didn't have a band at the time. And I was writing all these fucking crazy tunes. You know, this was what was going to become like a Scadis material later. And Jay was like, "Holy shit, dude! Like, you need a singer?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So and then he's like, "I'll start asking around for like a drummer and a bass player, and we'll put this fucking band together." And he ends up getting in touch with Porno, and they right away they ask him like, "Oh, you know, are you doing anything?" He's like, "No, you want to come sing for Porno?" And right away he's like kind of turn him down. He's like, "Well, no, I'm working with this Brian guy. He's got these killer tunes. Like, we're looking to fill out the band." He's like, "Do you guys need another guitar player?" Because that was Jay's, you know, idea, basically. Bring me in. We can do my music with this full band. We're good to go, you know. And just so happens they were looking for a guitar player. You know, they weren't actively looking, but they only had one, so they were like, "Yeah, you know, we'll give him a try." And I went out there, and they're like, it was a Sunday, and the guitar, I had 2 guitars. The guitar I brought had a Floyd Rose on it, and they tuned to B tuning. I couldn't I didn't have the tools to fucking fix my Floyd to do that tuning, so I couldn't even jam the first jam. So I just sat there, I watched and studied, everything they were doing. And then my other guitar was a Fender Strat, so I bring that to, I'm just thinking, oh, it's just jam guitar. So I go the next night, I bring the Fender Strat, start learning the stuff. And I think I learned 5 songs the first day, and they were just like floored, because I didn't have any recordings to bring home or anything like that. I just learned them. And then they gave me finally a recording. I learned the 5 songs. They gave me a tape to bring home. So I practiced the shit out of those, and then I went there 2 days later and learned another 5. And then that's when they had the idea of, oh, well, you should play the gig this week, right? Like I just joined the band on Sunday. They got a gig on Friday, and they're asking me to play the gig. And on Saturday, I had never even heard their music before. I didn't know who the fuck they were, So I didn't really want to do it. I was just kind of nervous. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, you guys want me to be, because, I want to be tight with the band. I want to know the music really well and shit like that. They're like, sounds great here. And they're like, we'll do one more jam. So we agreed to have a jam, the day before, like the Thursday. And we did the jam and went through the set list twice or whatever. And they were just like, dude, like, just, go do it. Like, you can do it. It's possible. So that gig was just the worst for me. It was nerve-wracking because all I was doing was just like staring at my fucking hand on the neck. And like, I didn't even want to play live. It was that bad for me, that first gig. After that gig, I didn't even want to play live again anymore because I just had like a knotted stomach the whole time. I'm up there for like 40 minutes. My stomach is just doing fucking cartwheels. I can't even look at the audience. Every time I peek up at the audience, I could see them fucking looking at me like, you're fucking it up, son, right? And because as a musician, every musician knows when you're up there, those little mistakes you're making, 99.9% of the time, the audience does not hear it, but the musician knows it. So that's why we always walk away thinking we didn't have such a good set. And you got people coming up to you, go, oh, you guys were amazing, like that's why it's hard for me to deal with people after a show, like where I get antisocial like that, because if they get going too much, like, oh, you were fucking so great, this, and I wasn't happy with my performance that night, it just makes me feel worse. Like, you thought that was fucking, like, holy fuck, I got better game than that. Like, come on now, but I know alcohol's involved. We're at a show, we're all drinking, so shit happens. But yeah, like, I wouldn't change it for nothing though, because it prepared me for the second show. Like I said, I hated the whole experience getting off there, almost vomited. I get down. And I'm like, I don't want to play. I was mad at him. I don't want to play for at least another fucking month. And we're going to get my right guitar down, because I played the show with my Fender Strat, too, which is another horrible fucking thing. Played the show, the right show. So the very next show they got was a pretty popular back then band out of Montreal called Oblivion. They were signed and everything like that. So that was my second gig, and it was just like, I think it was probably 5-6 weeks after that first gig, and like we just killed it. Like we went up, and it was like I was meant to be, because I was jamming with these guys like 3-4 nights a fucking week leading up to that gig, because I want to have it as well as like you guys have it. Like, and best part is now when I join them again here now for Hate You Hate, I did the same thing. Like, just fucking learn the songs really quick, and within 2 months I was on the stage with these guys, like less than 2 months. Whereas over the last 2 years, they had tried 2 different guys. One guy was like a fucking year, and he wasn't ready live. He was there for a year, and he wasn't where they needed him to be. And then I come walking in the room, and it's just, but I've played with them before. I've played that bass player's riffs before. So me and him already had, that whole connection from way back in the porno days from 25 years ago. And we had a really good connection back then.
So your first show didn't sound like
no, it was like I said, it was horrible. It was like I almost didn't want to play live again, because, like I said, I'm playing this baby blue Fender Strat, a fucking death metal band. I'm fucking sucking it up, like fucking, because I did, like even they said, they didn't fucking sugarcoat shit for me. They even said, here where you messed up here and here and here. Like there were some major mess ups where I just completely forgot the riff. But like I said, less than 8 days ago, I'd never heard one of their songs before. So, I can't be expected. That's why I kept, trying to push them. No, I don't want to play this gig. I kept saying, no, it'll be bad on you guys. Yeah.
Because the next question is, what was your worst show experience?
That was it.
Really?
Yeah, that was
That's
it.
your worst one?
That's the one.
Wow. So your first...
Well, because I didn't like playing live at all. I didn't have any ounce of fun, and we were playing in front of a lot of people.
Didn't
right?
sound like you had fun.
No, like I said, I was just stomach in knots, couldn't even look at the audience. So I wasn't, getting into it. I wasn't fucking banging my head or anything like that. I was just fucking sitting there, just staring at the neck of my guitar, just like, okay, song number 2 now, okay, 3 now, 4 now, just count until we get through these fucking 10 songs. Like when we got to song number 9, I was just like, that's when I finally came out of it a little bit, you know. I was just like, because the last song, that's their hit. That is the probably the easiest song that they've written, like to playing wise and stuff. So it was like nothing I could fuck up. It was not, you know, I nailed that one. Like, and I actually had a little bit of presence going and everything like that because I was confident in my playing just for that last song. But to have, like I said, 40 minutes almost of a set where you're just dreading and just want to walk off stage, right? Because anytime I was making those big mistakes, I just wanted to leave after that song that had happened and like, okay, I'm done. You finish it out, fucking, that's enough for me, you know.
Okay. Yeah, worst experience. Okay. What is your advice on newer bands starting to form to play shows in the scene?
Well, like I was saying earlier, connect with those bands. Like you definitely got to connect with other bands in town, you know, and especially in the metal, you know, because in the other genres you can kind of get away with like, you know, like because we play, you know, we're built as kind of a hardcore band, so we get thrown into all. We get to play metal shows because we got metal type riffs, but then we get thrown onto hardcore shows without even asking. We get asked, hey, you want to play this gig? Like every gig we've done at 765 so far, and I think we've done like 4 in the last year. We didn't ask them. They messaged the bass player like, hey, you guys want to play? Because there's like punk bands playing or hardcore bands playing and stuff. They don't usually come after us for the metal ones. The metal ones is the ones that we'll ask for. We'll see a metal show going and we'll approach, you know, the band, like, because I know most of the metal bands here in town, so, you know, I can just message them or I see them in person and ask them like, hey, you know, can you put us on the bill? Like our first London gig was with Bloodless Child. I've known Rick since he started Bloodless Child and playing gigs, and my last band with my kid, we played 5 or 6 times with Bloodless Child. So I saw he was throwing a metal show at the 765, and he had a couple bands. One was straight up like heavy metal, like the extreme metal, kind of like his. But then the other one was like this kind of like what we do, the hardcore meets the metal in the act of violence. They got a big hardcore edge to them and stuff. So that's why we wanted on. We were like, oh, this would be great because then, you know, you could start with us, then them, and then it just goes straight. So it starts off with the hardcore kind of influenced metal, and then it ends up with just the straight up extreme metal. Like you got to put your lineup right. So like I said, for the young bands, find the other bands, and you know, you got to hope. Like right now, there is a guy, you know, so ADM Promotions there, Adam, fucking, I think he's going to do well. You know, like I don't think he's going to do fucking, you know, like amazing right out the gate and pack venues or anything like that. But if he keeps at it, I think it's going to do like any like Black Element as they went on. The shows got bigger. They got bigger bands coming in and stuff like that because they could take the chance. They knew now, oh, well, we put on a local metal fest and we had like 150 people come through. So if 150 people came through for a bunch of Southwestern Ontario bands, what's going to come through if we take those bands and add Cryptopsy at the top of it? You know, like you're going to get another 50 to 100 people for Cryptopsy. So now you get, like I said, Black Element would pack the Richmond, and they were the only company I ever saw the Richmond allow to charge door. Because Richmond doesn't allow you to charge door. The Richmond pays bands 20 or 25% of what the bar makes while the bands are playing. That's always been the deal with the Richmond, and that lump sum you divide it amongst the bands, or the promoter gets it, divides it amongst the bands. They never let, no shows ever pay at the Richmond. You go in free. The shows are free, but they would let Black Element do it because they knew Black Element's going to pack this fucking bar. Like, nobody's going to complain about the $5 cover charge or the $7 cover charge because Insurrection from Montreal is here headlining a 2-day metal fest. So everybody packed that place. Like, when I saw that, I was totally impressed because I think that was probably maybe their 4th thing they did as a promotions company. Like, they weren't even in it for that long. And here they are, putting it like a fucking can of sardines in the Richmond. When's the last time you seen a metal show do that? The Richmond, I've seen it busy in the Richmond with the metal, but not like, you know, shoulder to shoulder, standing room only. So yeah, like I said, they can connect with the other bands and stuff like that, but definitely work on what you do as a band too. You know, you gotta kind of separate yourself from everybody else. You know, like it doesn't even have to be a big thing that you do differently than the other bands, because there was more than one death metal band here 25 years ago, but none of us sounded the same. Like you could instantly tell you were hearing the Daisies or Flesh Feast or Porno. Like with Daisies, they were kind of like the like Obituary, the more like, meat and potatoes, like when they started out, like that kind of mid-pace death metal shit. Whereas the Feast were just a fucking brutal, like, the blast beats, like evil death metal. And Porno, we kind of like, we had a female singer and we had keyboards and stuff like that. So we were kind of doing, like what Demi Borgir bands like that do before they were doing it. We were doing that like, back in the early 90s and stuff. But instead of the black metal style sounding riffs, we had more death metal style sounding riffs because of the drummer. He was one of the main riff writers because he's a monster on guitar, this guy. And everybody thinks he's such a great drummer, and it's like when they see him on guitar, they get like, well, holy shit, like, is there anything you don't do? Because now he's the singer in our band, and he's just singing in the band. And I mean, this guy's done it in the past as a frontman. I've seen him as a frontman. He had a certain amount of presence, but you could always tell that he was kind of like my first show with Porno. Like, he's just like nervous to be up there, and it didn't seem like such an enjoyable experience. But when you see him with the band that we're doing now, like, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. Because our first ever gig, it was April last year, and he was just kind of standing there. So we were having chats about it afterwards, like, because we had a video to look back after, and you kind of looking like Tragically Hip there, bro, like just standing there singing, right? Like, and in his defense, first gig, right? Like, this is our first gig. It's for Hate You 8 and stuff like that. It was an afternoon gig too in Hamilton, so it was in the middle of the afternoon, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it's kind of hard, like, we're nighttime guys, like we do the pre-drinking and smoking and that, and then you get in, you go. So we had the littlest chat with him, like nothing like serious, just like made a mention that you weren't moving around a whole lot. And holy shit, like the very next gig, he was just like a dynamo. And I think we played to like, maybe 11 or 12 people, but he was slamming in, doing the mosh pit, jumping up all over the stage. And he was making faces. And, it looked like it kind of scared her a little bit because, he does definitely remind us. We keep kind of joking with him, when he's going to go across that Gigi line, because he kind of reminds us of Gigi Allen, the way he runs all over the stage and gets all crazy and stuff like that. And like I said earlier, it's almost like he's not even registering the audience. That girl that got all nervous from the look, he probably wasn't even registering that she was standing in front of him when that look took place. He's just getting into what he's saying. He's totally we call him a wordsmith. Like with the lyrics, they do mean like something with him. He's just not one of these guys that's like, oh, I'm just gonna be in a metal band, just like write the evilest fucking shit I can imagine. Like, that's the other thing I really like about his stuff, because it can be anything. It can be what he feels about something, or it could be what he saw on the news the day before. Because one of our songs, one of the newer songs, there was a guy in Toronto ran over everybody with a van there not too long ago. And I made a comment in the jam room when we were talking about that news story that I wonder if he's copycatting the Stephen King show, Mr. Mercedes, because that's what the Stephen King show is about. And now we have a song called Mr. Mercedes, and it's all about this Hassanian guy that ran over everybody in the van. And it's told from his point of view. So Corey is singing like in first person point of view, like from Hassanian, but also from the other point of view as observer. He goes like on both sides of it. Gives you both sides of the story, which, like I said, as a lyric writer, I haven't really worked with anybody I feel that over the years that puts quite that, except maybe Mutual Execution. Eric Grava in that band, the bass player, some of his fucking lyrics, he's a brainiac, that fucking kid, though. So it's expected that his lyrics would be, good. Like whereas with Corey, it's just about how he fucking words things and how he sees things, and he's he'll be the first to tell you he's got a sick mind sometimes, and for Hate You 8, that's what we want, because we call ourselves our musical style grimecore, because we're not all the way hardcore and we're not all the way metal, but we have a pretty even mix of both of them, and then we put sprinkle punk rock in on the top in some songs and stuff, just to give basically it's to give the ladies something to dance to as well. Like I said, our job is to entertain everybody out there, right? And some girls, they end up at a show, they want to dance, they want to fucking move, they want something that's going to get them dancing or tapping their toe or whatever. And punk rock does that like nobody's business. And you get girls out at a punk rock show and stuff like that. And we've been noticing lately, the last couple of shows we've had, that we're getting a higher female ratio of watching us and digging us. Like they're digging us like harder than any guys have dug it before. And it's usually the 2 or 3 songs. We have like these 3 songs that are real punky. Those are the ones. For the rest of the set, they're gone. You don't see them anywhere. We're doing the stuff that's, you know, like metally all the way through. They're outside having cigarettes or whatever. Like, they don't give a shit, you know?
Would you like to add anything, and like any shout outs or where we can find your music?
Well, I'll add thank you for doing this. It's cool to have something done about London, because there is history here. There was like a thriving metal scene, and it's good to see that it's not dead. There's still bands coming out of it and stuff like that. We don't get the audiences and stuff like back in the day, but again, like I said, that's going to be a slow climb process, especially now with everything the way it costs now. Cost of living going up, everybody's broke and stuff like that. You know, back in the day, $5, everybody had $5 back in the day. Nowadays, you know, sometimes you got to go 12 because, you know, you want to pay the bands. I know these, you know, like Adam, he like any good promoter, he's going to want to pay the bands. He obviously appreciates what they come out and do and stuff. So, yeah, like in order to pay the bands, you know, sometimes you're gonna have to charge $12 or whatever like that. And like I said, it'd be nice to see if he keeps at it, keeps going with it, because that's all it's gonna take. Like I saw Black Element do it, and I mean, it was a slow, not very slow, but it was, you know, a slow but steady climb with them. And like within a year, you know, any gig they were doing, it was doing well. Like any gig that they put on here in London and stuff like that, it'd be nice if you know, ADM Productions can take up, you know, pick up that banner and run with it. Like they can be the new company that's going to do that. So as far as music, we don't have anything. Like, you can go to the Facebook and see a video clip here or there. We don't have anything recorded yet. We tried in the summer doing it ourselves, because our drummer has like a bunch of nice gear and stuff like that. And we went to like this cottage and shit like that, and you know, got entirely too wasted at the cottage, because you're at a cottage, and this cottage is on its own island. So it's like it's a rock island with a cottage at the top of it. There's nothing else. It's water all around. So you're completely private. You know what I mean? So you're a place like that. We were getting wasted and stuff, and we didn't really listen back to the tracks. We were all like, "Oh yeah," I was patting each other's back. That was great. You know, like we thought everything was a keeper. And then when we got back home and started listening to the shit, it was like, were we even listening to that shit? Like, what the fuck? So we've had a discussion about, we're thinking about, we'll just go somewhere. Instead of doing it ourselves, we'll just pick one of these places, because there's quite a few in London right now that you can get some decent recording done at a good price and everything like that. So we've been already bouncing around names and sending out messages, because I think we're going to do it for around May or June. But I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go with like some actual studio that's there for now and stuff like that, and wait, you know, to do the at-home recording at the jam room at the bass player's place, you know.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for all the information. And I'm going to see if I can find some footage from you, and after this, I will put some footage. Hopefully we'll find something. Thank you very much.
There's like on the For Hate You Wait page, like I said, I think it's like a minute. It's the last minute of a song. Somebody did that. We did have a guy tape the whole set.
Put something together.
Yeah, we did have a guy tape the whole set. Oh no, wait, I'll take a look, because there is a USB stick floating around with something we did at the Richmond. So I think we could get probably a full song for you out of there. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have something after the interview. Thank you for being in the documentary and for all the information. It's great. Thank you very much. Nice. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
All right. So we're doing the venue, the Vic Tavern, and it was the Vic Tavern originally. Actually, before that, it was nicknamed the Bucket of Blood. And then after naming called the Vic Tavern, they called it the Soho. And it was actually, the building was constructed 1917. And it's at the corner of Maitland and South. And the streets by William and Rose Gettysburg. It was operated, actually, it was a grocery store, a butcher shop, and it had like kind of like hotels upstairs or somewhat, people living upstairs. And actually there's people living upstairs right now. I actually ended up living next door, so I live next door right now. During the Depression, Hyman Gettysburg, son of the original owners, converted the building to a Victorian hotel and tavern, and he sold it in 1982, calling it originally the Vic. And under the ownership of Susie and Peter Kessinger until 2011. The tavern shut down June 2013, and Mike Small, he reopened it March 2016, and then it got reopened, like I said, by being called the Soho Bar and Grill, and then it shut down again. So it's actually shut down. It's been shut down for a while, and it's going to be reopened. It just keeps getting closed and shut down and closed and shut down. And like I said, I live actually right here, and I'm a paranormal investigator, and I did a paranormal investigation here, and it was pretty interesting. If you want to see that, if you go on it's a Facebook page, my paranormal investigation page is, my team actually is called London Paranormal Tracker, and you can see what happened there. And I actually did a movie on it called Mercy Love, and that's on YouTube actually. So this is the building. So the reason why we're actually doing this, it's actually a venue. It was a venue, and metal bands actually played here. So that's why I have this on the documentary for venues. So it was the Victorian Tavern and the Soho, and that's when metal bands actually played here. So I just gave some personal stuff of mine. What happened when I went here, and I actually saw bands here too as well. So that's the venue, Vic Tavern and the Soho. Okay, so I'm filming where the embassy, the venue used to be. It's actually not here anymore. It got burnt down 2009. The embassy, I checked out a lot of information, and what I found out was, actually I used to go to the embassy, but what it said was it was a pretty dirty place, and but people liked the shows that were there. One comment that I remember reading was if you stuffed a teenage boy's pillowcase with smoke butts and empties, you might come close to smelling like the embassy.
Or some homeless guy's vomit.
Or some homeless guy's vomit is added right here. But it was known to be legendary. There were some bands like Dayglow Abortions, and other such bands as that. But the reason why I'm here to show you the embassy, the venue, is because there were metal bands that played here. Another comment I got here was the Embassy Hotel was a dank, unsterilized pit. I mean, it goes on and on. But I mean, I went here, I liked the bands. I heard like we interviewed some of the bands, and they said, it wasn't the best, cleanest washrooms, but the bands were great. Some of the bands that we interviewed played there as well. So now it's a vacant lot, and I see there's a sold sign on the for sale sign. So something is going to be here soon. So yeah, this is the embassy, was the embassy, and it's just a lot now, but something will be here soon. We'll see what it's going to be. Oh, the embassy was also like a hotel. It was a hotel, and the people stayed there, but like I said, it wasn't the cleanest place. And but it was a venue where metal bands played, and had great bands. Okay, so we're at the venue APK. This venue is no longer open. I remember going here a long time ago and seeing some metal bands. So some metal bands have been here, and so that's what we're doing. We're just seeing some venues that some metal bands have been, and I'm just going to read out some things that I found out about this venue. Forerunners of the APK at other locations in London include Old Bars, Music Venues, Alex P. Keaton, and APK Live. APK opened early 2013 at 347 Clarence Street location, which had been home to Brennan's Bar and Bistro for 2 years, at a nightclub for 2.5 years before that. So yeah, I remember coming here and seeing some bands, and it was actually a really cool bar. Then it closed, and it's been sitting here for quite a while, unopened. No one's basically taken over or anything, and yeah, so that's basically it. So what we're doing is we're just showcasing some venues that have been still open, and some venues that that are not open anymore. And now Kyle is just going to say something about the APK, about the venue, and here he is.
So I started going to the APK probably around 2013. That was when I first started. So I first started going in 2013, and I seen about maybe 150 shows in this venue. Bands numerous, like I've seen Bloodless Child play here. I've seen Molocorps play here. I've seen like bands like Truth Today. Like when I came here, like I never thought like a venue would feel like such a home for me, because a lot of the shows I was going to were always here back in the day, and the problem was just like the venue shut down due to reasons like saying like the crowds weren't coming to the shows when they had about like 5 shows a week here, that people were stealing beer from the bar, also that, and like when I was here, the last show that ever like was in here metal wise was probably was probably Cryptopsy number 2 that happened. And during like Cryptopsy number 1, I'm trying to think, like, I can't remember the guy's name, but like when we were in here, Cryptopsy played about for 10 minutes, and a guy rolled his ankle in the mosh pit. And what happened is there was basically like 15 people piled on top of this guy, and like took about 10 minutes to get the ambulance here, 10 minutes to get the guy on the stretcher. And the funniest part was Cryptopsy's just standing there, one of the most brutalest death metal bands I've ever seen live, just playing elevator music for about 35 minutes. And then as soon as like the crowd calmed down, people just went completely ballistic again. And like when I saw that, I was like, this place has such like awesome meaning to it for what it did to metal. And also like Marty Reese, when he did his like metal gatherings here every Tuesday, and basically like it was a good venue for like all that. And it's sadly missed by a lot of people here, but it's the way how it was, and that's how it is.
I'm at the venue called The Office, and it's actually one of the older ones that are still open. I think it's still open.
Yeah.
And so they were actually in a bit of trouble, and they were asking for some money to keep it open on a GoFundMe. And so since it's still open, I think they were getting some help. A lot of people didn't want to see it closed. I actually went to call The Office when I was younger, and older too as well. And I saw a lot of bands at Call the Office, and they actually got some really good bands. If you go in there, they actually have pictures of bands that have been at Call the Office. They had some really like big bands in there. And this is why I have Call the Office in the documentary, because we're putting the venues that had metal bands in there. So Call the Office had some and has some metal bands at Call the Office. I did some research on Google, and I came up again with a lot of information. I could read it all, but if you want to know more about Call the Office, just Google Call the Office, and you will get a lot of information. Some of the information that's on here has a lot to do with their GoFundMe, because they were in some trouble with keeping the bar open. And I was trying to get some information on who the owner was when the place opened. It's actually a 150-year-old building, and a lot of people, like I said, did not want the venue to close. So a lot of people did help the venue to stay open. Let's see here. And like I said, there were a lot of big bands that has gone through Call the Office, and there are metal bands that has gone to Call the Office. And Call the Office is a big venue, not a big venue per se, but it's a well-known venue. And I have gone there, and I've gotten really drunk there. I'm not drunk anymore. I've been sober for 4 years actually, but I've actually had a lot of drinks there when I did drink. So yeah, this is the venue, Call the Office, and it's still going with metal bands and other bands. I'm standing in front of the Old East 765. we already did this venue in the first documentary, but since we're doing venues, we still included this venue in the part 2 documentary. We've already gotten a lot of information on this venue, but I'm still going to say a few things about this venue. Actually, I worked at this venue as a photographer, and as we know, metal bands go to this venue, and that Jim is the owner of this venue. And he already gave some information about this venue, like previous owners and stuff like that. So that's what I have here. And at the back is the lounge, and that's where the metal venues are. And at the front is karaoke and jazz bands and blues bands and stuff like that. So they offer a full menu, and there's a kitchen, and the food is amazing. Actually, I've had the food there; it's really good. There's so it's at the Dundas 765. The bar is called 765, so you can't really get lost as to know where is the bar or anything like that. It has a capacity of 700 people. It was called the Town and Country, as is already said, and it was taken over in 1982. So yeah, that's some of the information that I've got, and there's a lot of information here, lots of names and stuff like that. So yeah, and if you want to book there, again, that's all on the information on the first documentary that Jim has. He's just said to go through. There's the Facebook. You can go on. You can call him. You can actually just go in there if you want to book your band. Let's see. So yeah, there's a lot of information. If you go on Google and you just Google Old East 765, there is a lot of information on the bar. And so yeah, behind me, that's Old East 765, the venue. Okay, all right, so I'm at the Brunswick, well, what used to be the Brunswick venue. It's actually over there. We can't turn the camera that way because it's a parking lot, and I have to compete with the sound that way because there's construction, and that's what's making that sound. So I'm going to have to try to talk loudly, and also it's very windy today. So I have the wind and construction going on. All right, so like I said, this one's about the Brunswick, and it's that way. But there's a lot of cars, so we don't want to have that in the shot. So the Brunswick is at York and Talbot, and that's where we're at, York and Talbot. And it's dated at 1855. Now the building isn't here right now because there was a fire, and it was a suspicious fire to the point that they had thought that maybe the owner had started it. Not sure actually who started it, but they thought the owner started it. So that's what the thought was. But the building was actually burned down, and now the place is a parking lot. So the building was demolished in 2008 after a suspicious fire. and ending efforts to have the hotel on the northeast corner of York and Talbot. The streets was declared a heritage building, and it was one of only 2 remaining original hotels of this type that used to be found on almost every corner in York Street. Now, the bands of all types played at the Wick, and it was also called just the Wick. And in its last years, the Dirty Thursdays were home to London's rappers following the fire. The building was leveled, and the property became, as I said in the beginning, a parking lot. I actually went to the Wick when I was younger. I went to the Wick underage, and I drank underage. So that was not good, but it was good for me. I kind of liked it. But there were all kinds that was there, and like mods, and if you remember mods, that's how long back ago I was there. Skinheads, sharks or skinheads gets racist, like racism, and just like I remember going to the Wick, and the reason why that I have the Brunswick here is that there were metal bands. Went to played at the Wick, and it was a really cool place. And I try to remember, there was this guy that was very popular there. I can't remember his name, but you walked in there and everybody would say his name. He worked there. I don't know if he was the owner, but he was a guy. You walked in, you said his name, and he worked there, and he was really cool. That was my memory of the Wick. So I remember interviewing guys from the band saying that they played at the Wick, and I went there and I watched bands at the Wick. So that's the venue. Can't show you. I took a little bit of footage that while I'm talking was showing you a bit of what's not left of the Wick, but of what it is now. And so that's Brunswick Hotel. Okay, well, this is Budweiser Gardens. This is actually the biggest venue in London, Ontario. I did some research on the Budweiser Gardens, and it is a sports entertainment center, but they do concerts as well. See, here it says it's the largest such center in southwestern Ontario. So it's called the John Labatt Center. It opened October 11th, 2002. So named after John Labatt, the founder of the Labatt Brewery in London. And Labatt still has a large brewery in London to present today. Although the head office was moved to Toronto in early 1990s, and John Labatt Center's name was changed to Brewer Gardens Budweiser Gardens in fall of 2012. Now, the center was built in part to be the new downtown home of London's Ontario Hockey League team, the London Knights. There's a lot more information here. Again, I can just read off, but the reason why it's here, again, it's one of the venues for like metal concerts, for the metal scene. It's talking about here the history, the Talbot Inn. There's like yellow brick here that was used. The Talbot Inn is a 19th century building
that stood on the site for more than 125 years. So it's an Ontario heritage, the brick that was used here. So that's some information. Then it goes about the ownership and management of the center, like about the hockey and stuff like that. The cost and construction of the place, $14.2 million. That the cost of making the place and whatnot. So yeah, this is the Budweiser Gardens, and it's had some really big bands in there as well. Some really big concerts have been at this venue. And I've been there, and it's just huge. It's gigantic. Well, not gigantic, but it's pretty big. So that's the Budweiser Gardens. All right, I'm standing at the music hall. The music hall actually is at the back. At the front, it's called Rum Runners, and so the address of the music hall is 185 Queen Street Ave, between Clarence and Richmond. The music hall concerts, it says here, is a premier stop for any bands, artists, as they tour through southwestern Ontario. Acts such as the Arkells, the Trues, Killswitch Engage, but there's also, it says Snoop Dogg and many more have played at the venue, but also metal bands as well. Let's see, there's corporate events as well they have here, and apart from being a venue, they deliver state-of-the-art productions, outdoor concerts, and again it says Snoop Dogg, and I guess they're really into the Snoop Dogg thing. But yeah, the reason why I'm here is because they do have metal bands here as well. So they say that they have the capacity to have 1,600 people. There's 2 green rooms, including private bathrooms and 2 showers, and there's they have like these things that overlook the stage. It's actually a pretty big venue. There's 5 bar locations, easy load access at ground level, and 2 bus parking spots with show power, production office, 2 private box seating areas to view the concert, and 4 large bathrooms, 2 men, 2 women, and a sky view patio. So there's a patio up there. Let me see if I can move it up to, no, it's unlocked, but let's see. Yep, see up there is a patio.
And the Skyview patio sign.
Yeah, the Skyview patio. There's Skyview patio there. And see if you can bring it back to me. Okay, so here it says the Rum Runners part of it. I'm just gonna say that since it's here. It has a capacity size of 350 people, a green room including private bathroom and shower, a production office, the thing that's overlooking the stage, 2 bar locations, 5 washroom locations, 2 men, 3 women, and a sky view patio as well. So that is the Rum Runners, but also the main reason why I'm here, which is the London Music Hall. So in the first actually the documentary that we did, we had the special thanks, we went to the London Music Hall, and we were able to film some stuff at the London Music Hall, and it's actually a really good venue. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why I have the venue here, is because they do have the metal bands at this venue. All right, so we're at the Richmond Tavern, the venue. Now, it says here that this is one of Southwestern's oldest watering holes. It's built in 1852, and I was actually looking at right here, and it says Richmond Tavern established 1852. So yeah. Now it's by a grocer, DWC Day, and soon after converted into a hotel and tavern. The Richmond is the oldest surviving hotel tavern in southern Ontario. Now the tavern is known for two things: amazing music and top quality drought beer. With 15 beer on tap and a quality of drought you will find nowhere else. Actually, this sounds like an advertisement. I just got this offline. It says, "Come and taste why we're known as London's freshest, coldest pint." All right. There's live music 7 days a week. Music ranging in styles from jazz to funk to rock to traditional folk, and it's an advertisement. I feel like I'm giving an advertisement. We're sure to have something you'll love. Okay. So actually, basically, the reason why, again, I'm here to showcase or to show this venue is because they also have metal bands. Actually came here a few times to see some metal bands, and it was great. So here is the Richmond Tavern. They have had metal bands here, and Richmond Tavern.
And I'm gonna turn up. That's good. All right, it's recording. Oh. And you just do your thing. I think I'm down a bit. Can you actually see the screen here? See if I'm down a little bit.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll get you have a good rinse and mouthwash before we get going, and just have a spit in the sink there once you're done.
So during the documentary, I had a thought. I wanted to get a piercing, and I thought, why not put it in the documentary? And what's more than metal is getting metal. So here I am getting a piercing. Fun. Here we go.
So I'm gonna clean up the outside there.
My nose is running a bit. That hurt.
I'm gonna get a clamp on you there. Just a little pinch, but not too bad though. Alright, you ready?
Okay, wait. If you don't like needles, don't watch this part.
Take a deep breath and out.
Did you start yet?
Just gotta get the ball on there.
Hey. Oh.
Alright, we're done.
Oh. Was there blood?
No blood.
No blood.
No.
All right. Oh, that feels weird.
Yeah, it'll take a couple days to get used to, but looks good though.
Awesome. So, hey, during the documentary, I felt like I want to get a piercing. You know, I got a hankering for a piercing, but you know what? I thought I'm gonna put it in the documentary. So here I am, and here we go.
Alright, just gonna clean you up there.
Okay.
So line the Q-tips up your nose.
And what better way for a metal documentary is to get some metal.
Alright, so I'm gonna get a clamp on you there. Just a little pinch, but not too bad.
I heard this part hurts.
Yeah, and just tilt your head back a bit. Yeah. Alright, you ready?
Okay, hold on. If you don't like needles, close your eyes or look away. Oh my gosh.
And out. Alright, we're done.
What? That didn't hurt at all.
Yeah, that one's actually a pretty easy one.
Wow. People lied. I was scared to get this one.
Yeah.
That's
no.
it. He said, that's it. It's done. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Wow.
that was actually less pain. This was the second piercing. And that was less pain than the other one that I have. As you see, I had a piercing before. And that's the piercings in the documentary. Thank you. Wow.
No problem.